William Martinez never thought his life would change so completely on a Tuesday morning in September. He was rushing through the hospital corridors, his worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floors, when he accidentally bumped into a young woman carrying a stack of medical files, papers scattered everywhere like autumn leaves caught in a sudden wind. "I'm so sorry," William said, immediately dropping to his knees to help gather the scattered documents. His face flushed red with embarrassment as he looked up to see the most beautiful woman he had ever encountered. She had gentle brown eyes that seemed to sparkle with kindness, and her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail that somehow made her look both professional and approachable. "It's okay, really," Catherine replied with a warm smile that made William's heart skip a beat. "I should have been watching where I was going too." Her voice was soft and melodic, with a slight accent that William couldn't quite place. As they both reached for the same file, their hands touched briefly, and William felt an electric shock run through his entire body. Catherine worked as a nurse in the pediatric ward, and William discovered this when he saw her name badge as they stood up together. He was there visiting his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been admitted with pneumonia. What started as a brief apology turned into a conversation that lasted nearly an hour in the hospital cafeteria, both of them forgetting about their original purposes for being there. Catherine told William about her passion for helping sick children recover and return to their families. She spoke about the joy she felt when she saw a child's face light up after receiving good news about their treatment. Her eyes became even more beautiful when she talked about her work, and William found himself completely captivated by her genuine care for others. William shared his own story. He worked as a construction foreman, building homes for families across the city. He explained how he had always found satisfaction in creating something solid and lasting, something that would shelter people and keep them safe. Catherine listened intently, asking questions about his projects and showing genuine interest in his work. Their first date happened 3 days later at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Catherine wore a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, and William had spent an hour getting ready, changing his shirt 3 times before settling on a navy button-down that his sister had bought him for his birthday. They talked for hours about their dreams, their families, and their hopes for the future. Catherine had grown up in a small town in Mexico before moving to the United States with her parents when she was 12. She shared stories about helping her mother in their family's small grocery store, learning English by watching television shows, and working hard to put herself through nursing school. William was amazed by her determination and strength. William talked about his childhood in the city, growing up in a working-class family where his father had taught him the value of honest work and treating people with respect. He mentioned his younger sister Maria, who was studying to become a teacher, and how proud he was of her accomplishments. As weeks turned into months, William and Catherine's relationship deepened. They discovered they shared many of the same values about family, hard work, and helping others. Catherine would often work long shifts at the hospital, and William would surprise her by bringing dinner to share during her breaks. Sometimes they would sit together in the hospital garden, talking quietly while Catherine decompressed from difficult days caring for sick children. William introduced Catherine to his family during a Sunday barbecue at his parents' house. His mother, Elena, immediately took to Catherine, impressed by her politeness and genuine warmth. Catherine helped in the kitchen, sharing recipes and stories about her own family's traditions. William's father, Roberto, appreciated Catherine's work ethic and her dedication to helping others. Catherine brought William to meet her parents at their small apartment above the grocery store they still operated. Her father, Miguel, was initially protective, but warmed up to William when he saw how respectfully William treated his daughter and how willing he was to help around the store without being asked. Catherine's mother, Rosa, insisted on cooking William's favorite meal after learning what it was, and they spent the evening sharing stories and laughter. After dating for 8 months, William knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Catherine. He had never felt so complete with another person. Catherine challenged him to be better, supported his dreams of starting his own construction company, and brought out a gentleness in him that he didn't know he possessed. William spent weeks planning the perfect proposal. He knew Catherine loved the small park where they had shared their first kiss, so he arranged to meet her there on a Saturday evening in late spring. He had worked extra hours for months to save money for a ring, choosing a simple but elegant diamond that he thought would suit Catherine's practical nature while still showing how special she was to him. The proposal happened under the old oak tree where they had sat together many times, talking about their future. William's hands shook as he got down on one knee, pulling out the small velvet box. Catherine's eyes filled with tears of joy as he asked her to be his wife, promising to love and support her for the rest of their lives together. Their wedding was a beautiful but modest celebration 6 months later. Catherine's parents and extended family traveled from Mexico to attend, while William's construction crew served as groomsmen. The ceremony took place in the small Catholic church where Catherine had been volunteering, teaching Sunday school to children in both English and Spanish. Catherine looked radiant in a simple white dress that had belonged to her grandmother, altered to fit her perfectly. William wore his father's wedding suit, updated with a new tie that matched Catherine's flowers. As they exchanged vows, both of them cried, overwhelmed by the love they felt and the commitment they were making to each other. Their honeymoon was a weekend trip to a small coastal town 2 hours away, where they walked on the beach, shared seafood dinners, and talked about their dreams for the future. They discussed having children, buying a house, and growing old together. Everything seemed perfect and full of promise. After their wedding, William and Catherine settled into married life in a small apartment near the hospital where Catherine worked. William had started his own small construction business with 2 of his former co-workers, and things were going well. They were saving money to buy their first house, looking forward to the day when they would have enough space to start a family. Catherine continued working in the pediatric ward, often coming home with stories about the children she cared for. Some stories were heartbreaking, involving children with serious illnesses or difficult family situations. Other stories were uplifting, about children who recovered completely or families who found strength they didn't know they had during difficult times. William admired Catherine's ability to care so deeply for others while still maintaining her own emotional health. She had a special gift for connecting with frightened children and helping them feel safe during medical procedures. Her colleagues often sought her advice, and parents frequently requested that Catherine be assigned to care for their children. Their first year of marriage was filled with small joys and shared experiences. They developed routines together, like cooking dinner together every evening when Catherine's schedule allowed, taking long walks in their neighborhood on Sunday mornings, and visiting both sets of parents regularly. They learned each other's habits, preferences, and ways of dealing with stress. William discovered that Catherine sang softly to herself while cooking, always old Mexican songs her grandmother had taught her. Catherine learned that William worked with his hands when he was thinking through problems, often sketching building designs or fidgeting with small objects while he processed information. They supported each other through challenges, too. When William's construction business struggled during a slow period, Catherine picked up extra shifts to help with their finances without making William feel bad about the temporary setback. When Catherine went through a particularly difficult time after losing a young patient she had grown attached to, William held her while she cried and reminded her of all the children she had helped heal. By their second anniversary, William and Catherine had saved enough money to put a down payment on a small house in a quiet neighborhood. It was a modest 2-bedroom home with a small yard, but it represented everything they had worked toward together. They spent weekends painting rooms, planting a garden, and making the space truly their own. Catherine had converted one of the bedrooms into a home office where she could study for continuing education courses and work on projects from the hospital. William set up a workshop in the garage where he could work on small projects and plan larger construction jobs. They both loved having space that was truly theirs, where they could build the life they had dreamed about. Their happiness seemed complete when Catherine announced she was pregnant during their 3rd year of marriage. William was overjoyed, immediately beginning plans to convert Catherine's office into a nursery. They spent hours discussing names, imagining what their child would look like, and planning how they would balance their work responsibilities with parenting. Catherine continued working during her pregnancy, though she transferred from the pediatric ward to a less physically demanding position in the hospital's administrative offices. She missed direct patient care, but was excited about the opportunity to learn new skills while preparing for motherhood. William took on additional construction projects to ensure they would have enough savings for Catherine's maternity leave. The pregnancy brought new challenges that William and Catherine hadn't expected. During her 2nd trimester, Catherine began experiencing severe headaches and high blood pressure. Her doctor recommended bed rest and frequent monitoring, which meant Catherine had to take early medical leave from her job at the hospital. William rearranged his construction schedule to be home more often, wanting to take care of Catherine and ensure she was following her doctor's orders. He would bring her breakfast in bed, help her with gentle exercises the doctor had recommended, and read to her from books about parenting that they had collected together. Despite the complications, Catherine remained optimistic about the pregnancy. She would talk to their unborn baby, singing the same Mexican lullabies her own mother had sung to her as a child. William would often find her with her hands on her growing belly, having quiet conversations with their child about all the things they would do together as a family. The couple prepared the nursery together during Catherine's better days. They painted the walls a soft yellow color since they had decided to wait until birth to learn the baby's gender. William built a crib by hand, spending weeks carefully crafting each piece and sanding everything smooth. Catherine sewed curtains and arranged stuffed animals that friends and family had given them. Their families rallied around them during this time. Catherine's mother, Rosa, came to stay for several weeks, helping with housework and cooking nutritious meals to support Catherine's health. William's sister, Maria, would visit regularly, bringing books and magazines to keep Catherine entertained during the long days of bed rest. When Catherine was 34 weeks pregnant, her condition suddenly worsened. She woke up one morning with severe abdominal pain and blurred vision. William immediately drove her to the hospital, holding her hand tightly as she breathed through waves of pain during the frightening car ride. The doctors diagnosed Catherine with a serious condition called preeclampsia, which was threatening both her life and the baby's life. They explained that immediate delivery would be necessary to save both mother and child, even though the baby would be premature. William felt his world spinning as he tried to process this information while staying strong for Catherine. The emergency cesarean section was performed that same day. William waited in the hallway outside the operating room, pacing and praying while their families gathered around him for support. Hours seemed to pass like years as he waited for news about Catherine and their baby. Their daughter, Sophia, was born weighing only 4 pounds and 2 ounces. She was immediately taken to the neonatal intensive care unit, where she would need to stay for several weeks, while her tiny lungs and other organs finished developing. William saw her briefly through the window of the NICU, overwhelmed by how small and fragile she looked connected to various machines and monitors. Catherine recovered slowly from the difficult delivery and the complications of preeclampsia. She remained in the hospital for a week, frustrated by her inability to hold and care for Sophia the way she had imagined. William divided his time between Catherine's room and the NICU, learning how to help care for their premature daughter. The NICU experience was unlike anything either William or Catherine had prepared for. Sophia was so small that William could hold her entire body in his 2 hands. She needed help breathing, eating, and maintaining her body temperature. The nurses taught William and Catherine how to provide kangaroo care, holding Sophia skin to help her grow stronger. Catherine's medical knowledge helped her understand Sophia's condition and treatment, but it also made her more aware of the potential complications they faced. She worried constantly about Sophia's development and whether the premature birth would cause lasting problems. William tried to stay positive, reading to Sophia and talking to her about all the things they would do together when she came home. After 6 weeks in the NICU, Sophia was finally strong enough to come home. She weighed almost 6 pounds and could breathe and eat on her own. William and Catherine were both excited and terrified about caring for her without the support of the hospital's medical team. They had taken classes and learned everything they could, but nothing felt more real than bringing their tiny daughter home. The early months of parenthood were exhausting but wonderful. Sophia was a healthy but demanding baby who required frequent feedings and constant attention. Catherine struggled with postpartum complications related to her preeclampsia, often feeling weak and overwhelmed. William took on more responsibility at home while trying to maintain his construction business. Catherine eventually returned to work at the hospital, but only part-time and in a different department. She missed her work in pediatrics, but needed a less stressful environment while she recovered her full strength. The family settled into new routines, with William's mother, Elena, helping with childcare during the day while both parents worked. Sophia grew into a beautiful and spirited toddler who looked exactly like Catherine, but had William's determined personality. She loved music and would dance whenever she heard Catherine singing. William taught her to say simple words in both English and Spanish, and she quickly became the center of attention at family gatherings. When Sophia was 2 years old, Catherine began experiencing unusual symptoms. She was constantly tired, even after full nights of sleep. She had headaches that wouldn't go away with normal pain medication. Sometimes she felt dizzy or nauseous for no apparent reason. Initially, both William and Catherine attributed these symptoms to the stress of working and raising a young child. Catherine's colleagues at the hospital noticed changes in her behavior and energy level. She was still competent at her job, but she seemed to struggle with tasks that had previously been easy for her. She would sometimes forget important details or lose track of conversations mid-sentence. When her supervisor suggested she see a doctor, Catherine reluctantly agreed. The initial medical tests showed nothing conclusive. Catherine's primary doctor suggested the symptoms might be related to stress, lack of sleep, or hormonal changes. He recommended lifestyle modifications like better sleep habits, regular exercise, and stress reduction techniques. Catherine followed these suggestions carefully, but her symptoms continued to worsen. William noticed that Catherine was becoming increasingly frustrated with her inability to feel normal again. She would apologize for being tired or forgetful, even though these things weren't her fault. She worried that she wasn't being a good mother to Sophia or a supportive wife to William. He tried to reassure her that she was doing everything right and that they would figure out what was wrong. After several months of worsening symptoms, Catherine finally convinced her doctor to order more comprehensive testing. Blood work, brain scans, and neurological evaluations were scheduled over the course of several weeks. The waiting period was agonizing for both William and Catherine, who tried to maintain normal routines for Sophia's sake, while privately worrying about what the tests might reveal. The results came back on a Thursday afternoon in October. Catherine's neurologist called and asked both her and William to come in for an appointment the following day to discuss the findings. The serious tone in the doctor's voice told them both that the news would not be good, though neither of them was prepared for what they were about to learn. Dr. Patricia Reeves, Catherine's neurologist, was a kind woman in her 50s who had been practicing medicine for over 20 years. She had delivered difficult news to families many times before, but she still struggled with how to tell young parents that their lives were about to change forever. William and Catherine sat together in Dr. Reeves's office, holding hands tightly while she explained the test results. Catherine had been diagnosed with early-onset Huntington's disease, a genetic neurological disorder that would progressively affect her movement, cognitive abilities, and emotional control. There was no cure, and the prognosis was not optimistic. The doctor explained that Huntington's disease was inherited, meaning Catherine had received the gene from one of her parents. She also explained that Sophia had a 50% chance of inheriting the same gene, though testing wouldn't be recommended until Sophia was old enough to make that decision for herself as an adult. Catherine asked detailed questions about the progression of the disease, treatment options, and life expectancy. Dr. Reeves answered honestly but gently, explaining that people with Huntington's disease typically lived 15 to 20 years after symptoms began appearing. Catherine was only 28 years old, and Sophia was just 2. The drive home from the doctor's office was silent except for the sound of Catherine crying quietly in the passenger seat. William felt numb, unable to process the magnitude of what they had just learned. He focused on driving safely while his mind raced through questions about their future, Sophia's care, and how they would manage the challenges ahead. That evening, after Sophia was asleep, William and Catherine sat together on their couch and talked about their fears, hopes, and practical concerns. Catherine worried most about Sophia, wanting to ensure their daughter would have everything she needed, even as Catherine's condition worsened. William worried about Catherine's suffering and whether he would be strong enough to care for both his wife and daughter through the difficult times ahead. They decided to research everything they could about Huntington's disease and connect with support groups for families dealing with the condition. Catherine wanted to continue working as long as possible, both for the financial stability and for her own sense of purpose. William promised that they would face this challenge together, just as they had faced every other difficulty in their relationship. The next few years were a mixture of precious normal moments and gradual changes that reminded William and Catherine daily of the future they were facing. Catherine continued working at the hospital, though she had to reduce her hours as her symptoms slowly progressed. She began experiencing involuntary movements in her hands and occasional difficulty with balance. William researched Huntington's disease extensively, learning about symptom management, support resources, and what to expect as the condition advanced. He attended support group meetings with Catherine, where they met other families dealing with similar challenges. These connections became lifelines, providing practical advice and emotional support from people who truly understood their situation. Sophia, now 5 years old, remained largely unaware of her mother's diagnosis. Catherine and William had decided to wait until Sophia was older to explain the situation in age-appropriate terms. For now, they simply told Sophia that Mommy sometimes felt sick and needed extra rest, but that both parents loved her very much and would always take care of her. Catherine was determined to create as many memories with Sophia as possible while she was still able to participate fully in their daughter's life. They took family trips to places Catherine had always wanted to visit, documented everything with photographs and videos, and established special traditions that Sophia could continue even after Catherine was gone. One of their most treasured traditions was Saturday morning pancakes, where Catherine would teach Sophia family recipes while William cleaned up behind them. Catherine would tell Sophia stories about her own childhood in Mexico, sharing cultural traditions and family history that she wanted Sophia to remember always. These kitchen conversations became some of William's most cherished memories. As Sophia started kindergarten, Catherine's symptoms became more noticeable. Her involuntary movements increased, and she began experiencing mood swings and cognitive changes that were characteristic of Huntington's disease. Some days were better than others, but the overall progression was undeniable and heartbreaking for William to witness. Catherine had to stop working when Sophia was 6 years old. The hospital had been understanding and supportive, allowing Catherine to reduce her responsibilities gradually and providing excellent medical benefits for her care. Her colleagues threw a beautiful farewell party, sharing stories about the difference Catherine had made in the lives of countless children and families. William reduced his construction projects to spend more time caring for Catherine and Sophia. His business partners understood the situation and helped him transition to consulting work that he could do partially from home. The financial adjustment was challenging, but William's priority was being present for his family during this difficult time. Catherine's parents, Miguel and Rosa, moved closer to help with daily care and childcare. Rosa would stay with Catherine during the day, while William worked, helping with household tasks and providing companionship. Miguel helped William with home modifications to make their house safer and more accessible as Catherine's mobility decreased. The family established new routines that accommodated Catherine's changing needs while maintaining as much normalcy as possible for Sophia. Catherine could still read bedtime stories to Sophia, though sometimes she needed William's help when her speech became unclear. She could still help Sophia with homework, though complex tasks became increasingly difficult. William watched his wife struggle with the loss of her independence and abilities. Catherine, who had always been capable and strong, became frustrated when simple tasks became challenging. She worried constantly about being a burden on William and Sophia, though William repeatedly assured her that caring for her was not a burden, but a privilege born of love. When Sophia was 7, Catherine's condition had progressed to the point where she needed more comprehensive care. Walking became difficult and dangerous, so William installed railings throughout their home and rearranged furniture to create clear pathways. Catherine began using a wheelchair for longer distances, though she could still walk short distances with William's support. The family started meeting with social workers and medical professionals to plan for Catherine's ongoing care needs. They discussed options for in-home care, medical equipment, and support services. Catherine insisted on being involved in all these decisions while she was still able to participate fully in the planning process. One of the most difficult conversations occurred when Catherine and William discussed Sophia's future care. Catherine wanted to ensure that Sophia would have strong female role models and continued connection to her Mexican heritage. They arranged for Catherine's sister Elena to play a larger role in Sophia's life, and they documented family traditions and stories that Sophia could access as she grew older. Catherine also worked with a lawyer to update their wills and establish a trust fund for Sophia's education and future needs. She wrote letters to Sophia for important milestones like birthdays, graduation, and her wedding day, wanting to provide guidance and love even when she couldn't be there in person. By the time Sophia turned 8, Catherine's speech had become significantly affected, and her involuntary movements made many daily activities impossible without assistance. William had become skilled at understanding Catherine's needs even when communication was difficult, and he helped translate for Sophia when necessary. Despite the challenges, the family still found moments of joy and connection. Catherine loved listening to Sophia practice piano, even when her own movements made it impossible for her to play the songs she had once taught Sophia. William would often find Catherine and Sophia together, Catherine gently stroking Sophia's hair while Sophia read aloud from her school books. The progression of Huntington's disease meant that Catherine gradually lost the ability to care for herself independently. William learned to help with feeding, bathing, and mobility, tasks he approached with tenderness and respect for Catherine's dignity. He never complained about the physical demands of caregiving, though friends and family could see the emotional toll it was taking on him. Catherine's cognitive symptoms made some days particularly difficult. She would sometimes become confused about time and place, not recognizing familiar surroundings or becoming agitated for reasons that weren't clear. William learned techniques for managing these episodes, staying calm and patient while helping Catherine feel safe and oriented. When Sophia was 9 years old, Catherine's condition had advanced to the point where she needed round-the-clock medical care. The family made the difficult decision to arrange for hospice services, with Catherine remaining at home surrounded by family rather than moving to a care facility. This decision reflected Catherine's wishes and the family's commitment to keeping her comfortable and loved. The hospice team included nurses, social workers, and chaplains who provided both medical care and emotional support for the entire family. They helped William understand what to expect during Catherine's final stages and provided resources for helping Sophia cope with the impending loss of her mother. Catherine's final weeks were peaceful, spent surrounded by family and filled with expressions of love. Sophia would lie next to her mother, holding her hand and talking about school and friends. William would play soft music that Catherine had always loved, and family members would take turns sitting with Catherine and sharing favorite memories. During her last conscious days, Catherine managed to communicate her most important messages to William and Sophia. She told Sophia how proud she was of the kind and smart girl she was becoming, and how much she would always love her daughter. She told William how grateful she was for their life together and how much their love had meant to her. On a quiet Thursday morning in spring, with William holding one hand and Sophia holding the other, Catherine passed away peacefully in their bedroom. Her last words to William were barely whispered, but he heard them clearly. "Take care of our beautiful girl. Tell her every day how much I love her. Promise me you'll help her remember the joy, not just the sadness." William's hands trembled as he held Catherine in those final moments. The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow, knowing that he was now solely responsible for preserving Catherine's memory for Sophia while building a future that Catherine would never see. The promise he made to his dying wife would guide every decision he made for the rest of his life. The funeral was a celebration of Catherine's life attended by family, friends, colleagues, and many families whose children Catherine had cared for during her nursing career. Sophia sat between William and her grandmother Rosa, listening to stories about her mother's kindness, dedication, and love. The service included Mexican traditions that honored Catherine's heritage and the lullabies she had sung to both Sophia and her young patients. In the months following Catherine's death, William focused entirely on helping Sophia grieve while beginning to process his own loss. Sophia struggled with understanding why her mother had to die and whether she would develop the same disease. William arranged counseling for Sophia and participated in therapy himself to ensure he could provide the support Sophia needed. William kept the promise he made to Catherine, sharing positive memories and stories about Catherine's life rather than dwelling on the illness that took her away. He continued the Saturday morning pancake tradition, learning to make Catherine's recipes and sharing the cultural stories Catherine had told during those kitchen conversations. Sophia gradually began to heal, though she continued to miss her mother deeply. She kept Catherine's photographs in her room and would sometimes have conversations with her mother's picture, telling her about school accomplishments and asking for guidance with difficult situations. William encouraged this connection, believing that Catherine's love would continue to guide Sophia throughout her life. Years later, William would look back on his time with Catherine as the greatest blessing of his life, despite its tragic ending. Catherine had taught him about unconditional love, strength in the face of adversity, and the importance of making every moment count. The lessons she taught him and the love they shared continued to influence every decision he made as he raised Sophia and built a new life while honoring Catherine's memory. Sophia grew up knowing she was deeply loved by both parents, even though one had been taken from her too soon. She inherited Catherine's compassion for others and William's determination, becoming a remarkable young woman who carried forward the best qualities of both her parents. The love story of William and Catherine lived on through their daughter, proof that true love transcends even death itself.